Here's my very favorite sign from Saturday's March for Our Lives. This girl wants to know if freedom really is more important than safety. Simple answer? Yeah. Hey guys, you're watching MRCTV. I'm Brittany Hughes, and yes, freedom is more important than safety. Because without freedom, there is no safety. But since Parkland Kids and Company have clearly skipped a few too many history classes to go hang out with CNN, here's a quick refresher. Before World War II, gun rights laws in Germany were already some of the most restrictive in the world. In 1938, Hitler enacted the German weapons law. It was a law that prohibited Jews from owning firearms, and it made it easier for Nazis to get guns. By 1945, more than 6 million Jews were dead. During his first year in power, Joseph Stalin implemented strict gun control measures, including mass registration and then confiscation. He then proceeded to murder somewhere between 6 and 20 million of his own people. In 1911, Turkey stripped its Armenian citizens of their firearms, rounded them up, and forced them into concentration camps, where they were worked and starved to death. One of the first things that Cuban dictator Fidel Castro did after rising to power in 1959 was to order the disarming of the Cuban people. He then imprisoned, tortured, and murdered thousands. Even Snopes, one of the most left-leaning fact-checking sites known to man, even had to admit that gun confiscation laws are a crucial precursor to nearly every 20th century genocide in history. Today, American leftists are marching in the streets demanding that the government confiscate our guns. And the few who don't want an all-out Second Amendment repeal want us to be left with pea shooters that fire spitballs and bubbles. Because I guess if we ever have to face down tyranny or defend ourselves, the last thing that we would want is a gun that could actually hurt somebody. So the very first thing that tyrannical governments do to ensure the helplessness of their own people is the very thing that liberals are voluntarily lining up for like a bunch of dumb sheep at a slaughterhouse. And the right to bear arms is not the only one that they want to scrap, by the way. How about the First Amendment? A recent poll from the Charles Koch Foundation found that when asked which is more important, 53% of college students said that inclusion and diversity is more important, while only 46% said free speech. 65% of college women, a group that only recently won their right to stand up and be heard, now say that free speech is not as important as preserving someone else's feelings. They pervert the freedom of the press to spread lies and propaganda and shut down the messages that they don't like. Apparently, you have the right to peacefully assemble, just not if you're 5 million Americans banded together under the NRA. And you can forget religious freedom if you're a conservative, a Christian, a baker, or God forbid, all three. And not done yet. One of the biggest sparks that ignited the American Revolution was the passing of the Sugar Act of 1764 and the Stamp Act of 65. Why? Because the British Parliament did not believe that colonists were paying their fair share in taxes. Now, the American left is lobbying for the government to jack up taxes on ourselves, particularly on those Americans who've worked the hardest and had the most success. They are actually limiting their own ability to succeed and enjoy what they have earned without it being stolen by a government who will blow it on dumb crap. They praise socialism, which has killed more than 100 million people worldwide. They get all tingly when the government forcibly seizes land from states and the taxpayers who live in them. They even deny unborn children their very right to life. Across the board, progressives are literally advocating for the very things that we used to go to war over. And see, this is what happens when you raise a generation that forgets its own history. They will happily trade freedom for security and lose both. We are not the first generation to march and protest over our rights. Millions who came before us fought, bled, and died to secure those rights. Countless victims under oppressive regimes worldwide would have done anything to have these rights. You just may be the first idiots lining up to voluntarily surrender them. And that's your Reality Check, America. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.